نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So today inshallah we'll continue our lesson and regarding discussing the chapter of Kitab or Babu Sifatu Salat from the book Bulugu Maraam. And in the last lesson we're discussing the hadith that discuss concerning certain matters regarding the recital in a different salat and the length of the different rakat. So we discussed many issues regarding the person who's unable to read Al-Fatiha, what is to be done in such case. So we discussed concerning matters relating to what else we discussed? No, the matter that we discussed last week. Who remember? So the matter that we discussed last week. That regarding salat that are done, silence that are done, those ones are done, allowed. So discuss concerning the ones that are traditionally based upon the sunnah. What's the tradition concerning? Based upon the sunnah established that some salat of the compulsory one that they are done silently, and some are done aloud. Now, I will discuss those ones. Which is the one are done aloud would be Fajr, Maghrib, and Isha in the first two rakah. Now, and the remaining ones that they are done silently. As for Dhuhr and Asr from start, all the rakat are done in silence. We discussed concerning all I mentioned concerning that. Then we discussed concerning the person who's unable to read Al-Fatiha. What is to be done? I will mention that there are certain adhkar that a person can say due to is lack of ability to read Al-Fatiha due to the reason that we gave. They will discuss concerning that in the first two rakatain that the person read Al-Fatiha, and also what? In the first two rakatain we read Al-Fatiha and also another surah from the Quran or more. We discussed, they will mention that in the last ones after the first two rakatain, then those ones are done silently, and the person normally he just stick to Al-Fatiha, but he can exceed Al-Fatiha as we discussed in the hadith of last week. We mentioned a scenario concerning that even though we mentioned that reading Fatiha and a surah from the Quran, a portion of the Quran in the first two rakatain of the ones that are read aloud, if the person by chance, the Imam was to, or the person was to read those silently, what's this the case? Is the salat invalid or is it still valid? So I mentioned the person's salat is still valid as reciting aloud is a sunnah. Reciting aloud in those ones that are read aloud, that act now is considered to be a sunnah amongst ulama. So if a person, by whatever reason may be, read silently the one that should be read aloud, so the person said khilaf al-sunnah, but his salat is still valid. I would say opposite. If the person was to read aloud those in, for example, Dhuhr and Asr, what's the ruling on his salat?
The same as he would have done if he started Maraam.
So it is still considered to be valid, but khilaf al-sunnah. So the person have done khilaf al-sunnah. But if the person was to do it, become a common practice, a regular practice. Now, so it said khilaf al-sunnah mean the person one or twice it may occur occasionally. Now, but if the person was to do it repeatedly, regularly, then that could raise to bid'ah. Now, could become now a time which is being done constantly, then now it could be looked into as being an act of bid'ah, because the person will clearly go against the sunnah. Now, they will discuss concern that if this that are read aloud, that applies for male and also for the female, if they're either a female praying by herself, or she's praying with other female, then also the same ahkam that they can also read aloud in those ones that are read aloud. So we discuss those matters regarding that matter. We discuss regarding anything after Al-Fatiha, then that is considered to be a sunnah. So the person was to read, for example, in Fajr or Maghrib or Isha. Now, only Fatiha or any Salat, just Fatiha alone, then that's sufficient. Anything addition is a part of the Sunnah, but it is Sunnah, Mustahab, but it's not Wajib. Clear? The person just restrict himself to, for example, Maghrib, read only Fatiha aloud, then he went into ruku. And this intentionally. So the person khilaf sunnah, but the salat is still valid. Now, so those are some of the matters that we had covered last week. So then we just read and some other matters regarding the person is allowed that also within the sunnah of the salat that the first rakah is usually the longest regarding recital, then the one that come after the second will be second, then the others shorter. So that's the general sunnah regarding the salat. The first, the longest, then the others somewhat shorter. And the first two are normally the longest or the longer regarding recital. Then we discussed concerning matters regarding the person was, the question was we discussed concerning, I also mentioned, if a person that is not a must in reciting from the Quran, the person has to stick to the structure or the ayah, the order that the surahs are laid out in the Quran that we have today. So the person was to go contrary to this, then the salat is still valid and it's not something he's doing which is haram or something that he needs to be corrected on. Now, as we mentioned, the Prophet said that he read in certain salat, Baqarah and others that came after. So he changed the sequence or the order of the surah. So that's concerning those matters. And also the person is allowed to recite, for example, in the first rakah, one particular chapter, and the second repeat the same thing. This could be done. As the Prophet said, he did this, showing that the permissibility of it, but it's not a normal practice. But it can be done. And if it is done occasionally, then there's no harm. And also reciting more than one surah, then also no harm in this. So that inshallah ta'ala will then go to the hadith that I mentioned after this particular discussion. We had a hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. That's where we start from. We had a hadith of Abi Qatada last week, isn't it?
Yeah, we finished that one.
We finished that one. Okay, so what comes next? Aywa, the hadith that follows. Tafaddal.
Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, that one.
That's the one.
Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, we used to estimate the length of the standing position of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the Zuhr and Asr prayers, and we estimated that he stood in the first two rak'ah of the Zuhr prayer as long as it takes to recite Alif Lam Mim, Surah Al-Sajdah, and in the last two rak'ah half the time of that. And in the first two rak'ah of Asr he used to stand as long as the last two of Zuhr, and the last two rak'ah of Asr used to be of about half the time of the first two, reported by Muslim.
And the hadith after, hadith
narrated Sulaiman bin Yasir, so used to prolong the first two rak'ah of the Zuhr and shorten the Asr prayer, and recite the short surah of Mufassal at Maghrib prayer, its medium surah at the Isha prayer, and its long one at the Fajr prayer. Then Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu said, I never pray behind anyone whose prayer more closely resembles that of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam than this person. Reported by An-Nasa'i with a Sahih authentic isnad.
So Bismillah. So the author Rahimullah Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani Rahimullah in his book Bulugu Maraam, that now discussing concerning now matters relating to al-Qira, concerning now al-Miqdar. So he discussed concerning Miqdar, Qiraat fi Salat. What's the portion of the Quran that one can read in the various salawat? Now, so you can somewhat start to mention as to an estimated amount of what is to be read in the different salawat. So he started concerning al-Dhuhr and also Asr. And after Allahu A'lam, I read concerning starting with Dhuhr and Asr, as Dhuhr was the first salat that was made compulsory. Now, so the first of the compulsory salat was considered with established concerning Salatul Dhuhr. Now Asr, and then continue on. So he started with Dhuhr and Asr. So Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he started with the Dhuhr and Asr as they were the first of the salawat to made regarding being in the order of being compulsory. So I mentioned the hadith of Abu Sa'id Al-Khudri anhu regarding this matter. That regarding, we used to estimate concerning Prophet Salat regarding an estimation regarding how much he would read in each rak'ah or each in these surah. They mentioned Alif Lam Mim, Sajda, and the likes. So that's concerned. So these are just discussed or give us a general idea as to what is the general estimated, they say, miqdar, amount that one can read in different salat. It may change based upon reasons, and depending on the imam, but generally give us a general estimate regarding what is considered to be an okay limit to read in the salawat. So it mentioned these, and they mentioned concerning that the ulama, they more kind of encourage the recital of the last surah of the Quran, and they discuss concerning al-Mufassil. So they have a discussion also what is said to be or where concerning al-Mufassil start in the Quran. Now, those who mention from Qaf until An-Nas. So you have the discussion, those who mention that from Qaf to An-Nas is of those Mufassil. Some mention from Qaf to Abasa. So you have that discussion between the ulama. So you have that discussion, or they mention concerning that al-Mufassil from Qaf through to An-Nas, then divide it into the Tiwal al-Mufassil, which will start from Al-Qaf up until Abasa. Then you have the second one concerning Al-Awsat al-Mufassil, the one that are more the medium. So you have the lengthier surah of that portion of the Quran. Then you have the one more of a medium, which is concerning, they mentioned from Abasa until Al-Duha. And then you have the Qisar, the more shorter ones, and that will go until An-Nas. So that they kind of somewhat put it in that way. And they encourage, or some kind of somewhat mention about reciting the surah more, because most of them discuss concerning Jannah wa Nar. Nam, more concerning Jannah wa Nar, and these matter concerning Al-Akhirah. Nam, so and also matter concerning Al-Tawheed. So can somewhat emphasize these particular surah, and also the majority of the Muslim, that they are more familiar with these surah compared to the longer ones. They're more familiar with these shorter ones, and also it give a person a longer one. When a person starts, you have an idea how long you might go. When it comes to a person starts with Baqarah, you don't know how long you might go. He's gonna go the full thing, or he's gonna go for 20. So sometimes the person is there thinking. He's not thinking what with the Imam reciting, he's more thinking, when are you going to stop? You get me? So when the person starts a longer one, you understand, Shaitan, he comes to the person, when the person is going to go for the next 10 ayah, 20, 25, that's how the Shaitan plays with us. Now, so sometimes it's better, so the one that that the person can somewhat know, okay, this surah, we know exactly it's about 25 ayah, from start to end, so you're going to do the full thing, or a portion, but you can somewhat know the length of that ayah, of that surah. So the hadith shows regarding that in Dhuhr and Asr, that the Prophet Islam, as-Sunnah, that Islam, that he would in the first two rak'atayn, that the recital used to be a little bit longer, and the last two that they're usually shorter. Now, so that's concerning that matter. So you have, they mentioned that of the salawat, you have Dhuhr, normally a bit lengthier than what most of us are used to. So Dhuhr, so you have, if we put it in length-wise, the longer one will be Fajr, then Dhuhr will come next in line. Regarding the surah concerned, recited usually be longer, Fajr, then Dhuhr, even though today, due to whatever the reason is, it's a bit different. Now we find that Dhuhr somewhat short due to ad-dunya, but normally Dhuhr also should be at a medium length, not as short as in most cases that we may conduct or carry out a Dhuhr. So Dhuhr concerning Surah Al-Ala, Surah Al-Ghashiyah, those type of length is good for Dhuhr. Those type of length is good for Al-Dhuhr. Was-Sama' Al-Buruj, Wat-Tariq, those type of surah for Dhuhr is good or reasonable enough for Dhuhr regarding the length of those rakat. So that's concerning Salat al-Dhuhr And then also something similar, which would be the Asr would be a bit after the length of Dhuhr. So Salatul Fajr, not Salah Fajr, Asr, around something just a little after length of Salat al-Dhuhr. And that's the view of Imam Ahmed, as in the hadith here of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, that Salatul Asr is normally after length, or should be around, instead now, after length of Salat al-Asr. Then we discuss concerning those 2 rakat that he mentions. We won't go too much length in this particular discussion, as is somewhat clear regarding the matter being discussed. Ibn Ajur rahimahullah, after said of the benefit of this book, well, when we mentioned this book, Bulugu Maraam, that of the is of those books that Ibn Ajur rahimahullah, when he wrote this book or put this book together, that he had other who had preceded him. Now, so he kind of somewhat benefited from those who preceded him regarding a book similar to this, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid and others. Now, so of the ulama who preceded him regarding this particular book, so he kind of somewhat, but this book, as mentioned by some of the ulama, that when he wrote this book, it was more something that he wrote for his son. Now, so he tried to make it, and his son was a person who was a talib, but not one of the more the more studious of tulab, but had some love for ilm, but not the more studious of the student. So he gave him something that he believed would be suitable for his son. So what he did was that certain things he made short, to the point, regarding a hadith that I mentioned, and also the general benefit also. So the hadith generally, they are clear regarding what he's trying to, or they said the point he's trying to make from the hadith. And also what Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, the benefit of this book of Bulugu Maraam, he gives the hukum upon the hadith, in most cases, either his own or from others. So this hadith mentioned, the second hadith of Sulaiman ibn Yasar, he mentioned, Akhrajahu al-Nasa'i. I would say Akhrajahu al-Nasa'i, in which book of Nasa'i? Which book of Nasa'i? How many books Nasa'i has? 2. Which book is this one? And this is Akhrajahu al-Nasa'i. In which book would you look for to find this hadith? Because at Kutubu Sitta, we mentioned Kutubu Sitta. Some may say Sahih as-Sitta, but that's not correct to say the authentic 6th book. But the more correct is that Kutubu Sitta, the 6 books of hadith. Nam. So, and the 6 books are all, what are those 6 books? Bukhari, Muslim, At-Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood,
Tirmidhi.
Ahmad.
We said Tirmidhi.
You said it, yeah.
Aye. So we had Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood,
Ibn Majah.
Ibn Majah, one remaining. No food today. So we just mentioned Nasa'i. So Nasa'i, Nam. But some of the ulama of hadith, they have more than one book. Huh?
The Sunan of An-Nasa'i.
Hey, Sunan Nasa'i. Aywa. Some of the ulama, they have more than one book. Imam Bukhari have many books. Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, he have many books. Nam. But said now that Sahih is the one that became more famous. Nam. So you find most of those ulama, Imam Muslim rahimahullah, have several books. But most in the science of hadith. Imam Bukhari even have books in Aqidah. Famous books in Aqidah. Nam. So for some ulama, they have more than one books. After them concerning Imam An-Nasa'i rahimahullah. So in his book he has 2 main books. Nam. Regard that he said Al-Mujtaba, which is a part of Kutubu Sitta, that's the smaller one. And he has Al-Kabir, the bigger one. Al-Kubra. Nam. So Al-Kubra is much more a larger collection than this one. So I said An-Nasa'i, in generally they mean the small one, unless they specify. So if they specify, then they'll tell us the other one. Nam.
Why the small one? Is it more concise?
More concise, more concise. Some say it's an abridgment of the big one, but that's under discussion. Is that the case or not? You understand? Some say, but An-Nasa'i rahimahullah in this one will be Al-Mujtaba. Then I mentioned Al-Isnaduhu bi-Isnadin Sahih. Bi-Isnadin Sahih. Can someone then outline to us or give us concern that this hadith, the Isnad is Sahih. So that's concerning that particular discussion regarding what is to be read generally concerning Salat al-Dhuhr and Salat al-Asr. Salat al-Dhuhr and Salat al-Asr. Aywa. Then the next hadith of Jubair. Aywa.
هذا إكراه.
Adil. You're the Qari.
Narrated Jubair bin Mut'im
Aywa.
radiyallahu an. I heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam reciting at Tur in Maghrib prayer.
Aywa. So that again concerns to go to the third salat of the compulsory one, which is Salatul Maghrib. So we'll be concerned on what is to be read in Salatul Maghrib, or the miqdar, the length of the recital in Salatul Maghrib. So I mentioned, as we mentioned, concerns, that Surah Tur. So the mention is, as the ulama mentioned, like for Salatul Maghrib, to read the Qisar, that is something which is like mentioned in many of the books of the Fuqaha, that in Salatul Maghrib, it should be of the shortest of the recital, according to what is mentioned by many of the Fuqaha. But it doesn't mean that sometime going outside this is also permissible, as in this case, at Tur, which is a little more lengthier. So Salatul Maghrib can be shorter due to the time, but also sometime reading lengthier surah in Salatul Maghrib, then also that is also acceptable and should be done. Acceptable and should be done. So that's concerning that particular matter regarding Salat al-Maghrib. Even to the case that you find that one bahith, one researcher, I think universal researcher, that he made a book about this thick. Just collecting Ahadeeth that all relates to when the Prophet recited in different salat, what would you recite? So he collect all of that in one book. So to give us an idea, the length of the recital and the various ways of the Prophet Islam, what you would recite in various salawat.
So see, on topic, why is it we find that Fajr is audible and the Dhuhr and the Asr are silent, and then the Maghrib and Isha are audible again? Is there a reason for this?
So that
collected.
Yes, some ulama sometimes you might many ulama some that try to put forward some form of explanation, but there's nothing that from the Prophet Islam has said that this is the reason. You understand? Concerning what it said in finding the hikmah, the wisdom, or what's behind doing certain things. You understand? Some things, yes, it is clear, and something it is more ijtihad of the ulama in trying to detect what is the hikmah behind those things. That the ones that are the ones that are done in the night hours, they're normally done aloud, and the daylight ones are done silent.
One reasoning that I heard, but I didn't know whether it had any basis, that in the early times when the Salah was frowned upon by the rest of the Quraysh, that they would pray silently in the daylight hours because the Quraysh move around. But in Fajr, they sleep in Maghrib and Isha, sometimes they get
Those type of
liberated.
reasons, regardless, that reasons of those, regardless, it was done due to during that time that, for example, the Quraysh, you understand, whoever else, bear in mind that Salat being made compulsory was in the last year while it was in Mecca with the Quraysh, and even Salat, it went to when it started in Mecca. And reached Medina, things changed. So all they used to pray in Mecca, certain things changed. They used to, for example, Dhuhr, Asr, they all used to be Rakatain. Then later on it changed, it's added. So certain things were like, it developed, we got in the salawat. So to put those reasons, go back to Shahid, to put those reasons sometimes it's something which is not something to hold on to. Regardless, because of, not wanting to displease the Quraysh and da-da-da-da. You understand? Because, they were sleeping. Those things may not, that's, to give those reasons, it may not all stand. You understand? Because that pattern still continued when they were in Mecca, still continued even when they were established in Medina. You understand? It didn't. So those things sometimes may not hold as of the reason behind certain things. Certain things, hikmatullah, for certain things, Allahu alam, the ulama might put certain things, but is that something that's put out? The reason is that we said that's become the sunnah. But particular reasons sometimes that are given, they are questionable. You understand? The reason behind this, sometimes those things are questionable. You with me? So certain things will say, well, you find that one sheikh named Sheikh Salim, kind of Misri, Atiyah Salim, that I've seen that he used to put some kind of, like some sort of hikmah. He was a judge, another student of Sheikh Muhammad Amin Shinkiti, that tried to put some, the hikmah behind legislation. So I said, no, that's not what I've got. No, so something that he worked on, I met the sheikh, listened to the sheikh a few years when I was in Medina, that he used to try to find the hikmah behind why things were legislated. And he said in most things there's a reason, except for a few things that he couldn't find clear-cut the hikmah behind certain things. So he said something worked upon by the ulama, said, but something may have a basis and some things is questionable. It's questionable. Aywa. So this matter is a concern is not qira fi salat al-fajr, salat al-maghrib. Salat al-maghrib.
Is there a certain length of time for maghrib before it's too late to pray? Or does it have to be within the first few? Because usually people rush for maghrib because when the sun sets. Is there a certain time that has to be prayed by before Isha starts?
Then concerning each salat, concerning the mawaqit to salat, each salat have his own time, starting and ending time.
Yeah.
So the person the imam leading that, he should be aware of this. You understand? Where the salat should end within a reasonable time before it ends. Before the salat comes, the timing come come to an end. So that maghrib in most cases, most places in the dunya wouldn't exceed half an hour. You understand? And in most cases less than that. You understand? And the time for maghrib would be just, you have more than half an hour. You understand? Time span for salatul maghrib in general. It may sometimes exceed this. For example, us in England, one of the problems that we have in England and in Europe is regarding concerning, especially in the summertime, when maghrib actually comes to an end. You understand?
Because it's still,
the twilight is still not very apparent. You understand? So so you have that discussion even now. You understand? So you find that when it comes to an end, you understand, when maghrib comes to an end, precisely when Isha comes in, little discussion still. You understand? But you have at least an half an hour clear for salat. Nam. So they mentioned a hadith of that they mentioned regarding that Jubair, that when he they mention is that this particular Sahabi, Jubair ibn Mut'am, that when he heard this Surah At-Tur being read, he was then still a kafir, didn't accept Islam yet. And then he narrated this as well after accepting Islam. So he used to hear what we used to be read by the Prophet Islam, the salawat. At that time he still did not yet accept Islam. Then after he accepted Islam, then he mentioned this hadith. When he accepted Islam, then he mentioned this hadith regarding what he overheard the Prophet Islam reciting while in the salat. So he heard it at that time. When he heard this particular case, he was a kafir, but narrated it when he was a Muslim. So based upon the ulama concern that's of them, that a person in the state of kufr, if he hears of Islam, that they said it's not that a state concerned that another person is tahammul, a time where you can take things, but when it comes to ada, when you need to deliver that thing, the information about Islam, you have to be a Muslim. By the time that you heard the information, you could be Muslim or non-Muslim. But the time that you want to pass on that information about concerning hadith in particular, then of the condition you must be a Muslim. At the time, we said no, ada, pass on, narrate, transmit the hadith, then at that state, you have to be a Muslim. By the time that you heard and received the information, it's not a condition you have to be a Muslim. Clear? So you might find many companions fall into that. That at some point, they heard things regarding Islam, and at that stage still they haven't accepted Islam. But when I wish now to pass on that information, then it has to be looked at regarding, at that point, what's their state, are they Muslim or not? And if they are Muslim, then yes, it's accepted, but as a kafir, then no. And I think it had an impact on that person. When you say the surah, you have an impact upon him as a kafir. So you might find that once, and this is for a person who understands Arabic. Jubair there was a non-Muslim kafir, but he understood Arabic and understand the Quran, so it had an impact upon him. But so the Quran itself serves as its own dawah for the person who understands. But you go into a non-Muslim, English, non-speaking Arab, and you said, read Quran. And said, no, I've delivered a message of Islam because I sat and I read to you Quran. That's not it. With me? So by just reading Quran in Arabic to a non-Muslim who do not understand Arabic, you haven't done anything. Because the message needs to be what? Clear and understood by that person. Because I know of a case where a person was reading Quran to a kafir, or reading Quran loud, so it's like a non-Muslim man, a kafir could hear. Because he want to establish hujjah against him that he gave the message of Islam, but he was reading Arabic. You get me? And the person didn't understand Arabic. So, aywa. So, ala kulli hal is concerning, and it shows concerning that the richness of the Quran, that even the kuffar, then concerning to understand the Quran, that have an impact upon them. Now, it has an impact upon them. So go to the next hadith that follows. Aywa.
Narrated Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to recite during the Fajr prayer of Friday, Alif Lam Mim, Tanzil, Surah Sajda, and Hal Ata Al Insan, Surah Al Insan, which is also called Surah Al-Dahr, and it's agreed upon. At-Tabrani narrated the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud, which has the addition, he, the Prophet ﷺ, did that constantly.
And then after Rahimullah, again concerning discussing some of those salawat, in particular the Prophet Islam established a certain type of system regarding what would normally be read. Of those one is very distinctive regarding Salat al-Fajr. So certain salat, it give a general guidelines and some more specific regarding what is more preferred or what is more preferred to be read. So of those ones that's more specific regarding what is more preferred to be read. So what are the others concerning, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and those ones, general guidelines. They didn't specify a particular surah over others, just general guidelines as to what can be read. Now, but regarding particular some salawat, he gave specific guidelines. Now, regarding what is preferred to be read. And amongst those ones is regarding Salatul Fajr. Salatul Fajr, Yawmul Jum'ah, as in this case mentioned, what is to be read or more preferred to be read for Salat al-Fajr, Yawmul Jum'ah in particular. Yawmul Jum'ah in particular. So this hadith is to discuss this particular matter. That the more particular, or what is more preferred to be read on Yawmul Jum'ah in Salatul Fajr are these two surah. Surah Al-Sajda, Alif Lam Mim, Tanzil, and also I mentioned Surah Al-Insan, Al-Attack, Al-Insan. So I mentioned regarding, so these ones are the ones that are more preferred to be read, particular Yawmul Jum'ah, Salatul Fajr. And I mentioned regarding those concepts, they mentioned regarding that the meaning of those verses. that I mentioned about things concerning Yawm al-Qiyamah as a reminder, based upon a split regarding that, al-Qiyam al-Sa' will be Yawm al-Jum'ah. Nam, Qiyam al-Sa', the last day will be Yawm al-Jum'ah. So I want to, for instance, to reflect upon where you came from, your use the word, and to say our journey as mankind, or we came from Adam, came from nothing, and we can somewhat, and our end will be Yawm al-Qiyamah, and we'll see as to what will be our final place, either Jannah or Nar. There's no three others. There's no third. Jannah or Nar. Now, but it's thus concerned is establishing concerning at-Tawheed, being mindful regarding the journey of mankind, or mankind regarding, and that we are here to worship and to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's concerning that particular surah, mentioned Hadith muttafaqun alayh, regarding this particular matter. So you'll find with this matter that, and also in one of those surah, there's a sajda. There's a sajda to be done, regarding that a person do to be discussed, sujudul at-tilawa. Sujud at-tilawa. So one of those surah contain sujud at-tilawa as a part of what is to be read in Salat al-Fajr Yawm al-Jum'ah. Some of the ulama prefer that to be done on a regular basis. Now, regarding reading of those particular surah on Yawm al-Jum'ah, Salatul Fajr, to be something which is a regular thing to be done. But I mentioned that, and some mentioned that it's good for the Imam sometimes not to do it, to do something otherwise, so that some people do not see it as something which is wajib, or take it to be wajib, a must to be done. Because it's something sometimes is done constantly. For some people in their mind, it might be something which is wajib, and if it's not done, they start to become, they look down upon the Imam or question that act. For example, no Masjid, that for Jummah, that Imam will start out normally, or the khutbah, the khatib, that they'll normally start it with khutbatul hajah. With me? So for Yawm al-Jum'ah, khutbah, Yawm al-Jum'ah, that in particular masajid, that Imam or the Imam, that they normally start out with khutbatul hajah, and how they open their address. Now, one day someone came and did something opposite. Didn't open with what? Khutbatul hajah. So people asking, is that salat, is the Jummah correct or not? With me? Because they use a particular thing. It could be something of the sunnah, but for some of the people they may take this particular act to be something which is wajib. To do other than this, then they start to question the validity of their salat or their Jummah. So with Salatul Fajr, some ulama prefer that, yes, constant to be done as often as possible, but sometimes to break the sequence, to show that it's not something which is wajib, or something that has to be done every week.
So the khutbatul hajah for the person who's going to address the jama'ah, Salatul Jummah, is it something preferred?
Something preferred. But
if you don't do it,
for the person so start by praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and send salutation upon the Prophet Islam, that's a part of it. You understand? But khutbatul hajah is one of the ways it can be done. You understand? The Prophet Islam was used that method most often. And the hadith, but if the person wants to go do other than this, then salat is the khutbatul Jummah is still valid. Still valid. The person was to say Alhamdulillah, was salat, was salam, Rasulullah, and then he started his khutbah, then khalas, that's still enough. That's still sufficient. That's still sufficient. Of this act that you find concerning that we said another hadith that mentioned regarding the Prophet ﷺ, that normally for Jummah, that these are the surah that are mustahab to be read on a regular basis. Some of the ulama, or some people that have taken that of Salatul Fajr in particular, Salatul Fajr in particular, you find certain things that have now creeped in, that is Abidah, regarding Salatul Fajr in particular. Now, so in certain places, you find concerning for Salatul Fajr, that giving the qunut of Salatul Fajr is something that is done daily. With me? So the Salatul Fajr, there's certain things specific about Salatul Fajr, and more so, the one that we're discussing, Al Juma, where you find certain things, some people have taken it to other extent. Of those things that have crept into among some of the Muslim, that in Salatul Fajr in general, across the board, qunut is done daily. What I mean by qunut? The Imam, after comes up in the second rakah, he will give a dua. He will make a supplication. Now, so it becomes now for some a regular practice for Salatul Fajr daily. But in overall, the Prophet ﷺ, he did so, but not to the extent that it was done daily. But he did do qunut in Salatul Fajr on some occasions due to the need, but it wasn't something done constantly. With me? But for some people, they have now done it constantly. And so the ulama discussed that, that the act is the act of bidah. But if the person is in a place that they do so, what do? Don't pray Salatul Fajr because they're doing that act. You said that you ought to be a bidah for them to do it every day. Don't pray Salatul Fajr with them.
No, pray.
So that's the thing concerned. It's not one Sheikh I was listening to yesterday, Sheikh Ibrahim Rahili, Hafidullah, that concerns, these matters regarding concerns, that something being said to be a bidah. But if you face a place where if I don't, with that particular place or that particular act to be a bidah, and they're doing something which is Salatul Fajr, what do? Sleep in my house and pray by myself, or I don't go and pray in the masjid with the people?
You got to follow the Imam in the canoe.
Yeah, so even though they're doing a bidah, but because Salatul Fajr, you're in a Muslim land, they're calling the adhan, you're there, what you do? Don't pray because you said they're doing a bidah?
You got to follow the Imam.
Yeah, you follow the Imam.
You got to.
Hey, you follow the Imam in that one. No, so okay, we come to that one. So I said the general first step was the person, because the first thing concerning, because they're doing a bidah, a particular aspect of it's a bidah, does it mean that it gives you the right for you to totally abandon Salatul Fajr?
No.
And we said in the masjid. I mean in the masjid, not basically, some people might pray at home. But we said the person is still for the person to go and pray in the masjid. If you cannot find out a masjid that people are doing things correctly. With me? So some of you have traveled certain places, you may know what I'm talking. With me? So I said no, because they're doing that act, so if you can find a masjid that they're doing proper things as it is and that are difficult for you to get there, then go there. But if you're the closest masjid, all the masjid around you, they're all doing that act. Like I go to one particular place you go to, for Salatul Juma, you'll hear about 3 different adhan. All over the place at the same time. That's one after the other. One, dun, you're thinking, what's going on? But that's their practice.
What different masjid you mean?
No, in the same masjid.
Yeah.
Yeah. More than the normal amount of that you adhan that you expect. But doesn't mean that, even though if a person said that act of bidah, it doesn't justify that you do not pray what? Juma. Or you do not pray Fajr in the masjid.
Oh, you mean for the start of Juma, 3 different adhan?
Yeah, Salatul Juma.
Yeah.
But we said, the point is the shahid, because those things may be classed to be an act of bidah. It doesn't justify and warrant that now you do not go and pray Juma, nor go and pray Fajr in the masjid. Because sometimes you find people go to ghulu regarding how to deal with matter regarding that is deemed to be an act of bidah. How to work around those things, how to put them in their proper context regarding how to deal with it. You with me? Just as a masjid, so you find people today because of that not knowing how to put things in perspective. You understand? You find a quarter of the Salaf regard that they show hatred towards bidah, and they said even muharabat al bidah, that they fight hard against bidah and caution severe against bidah in general, and sometimes in specific regarding particular individual, particular group. But you find yourself in a situation now you have to manage certain things. With me? So a person might say, okay, that I've heard is Sheikh Fawzan as an example. any of the Kibar ulama was come to, for example, a particular country, for example, England, and they go to a particular masjid that I would never go to that masjid, even if the highest ranking, the most respected of the ulama, all of them in one the masjid, I won't go there because they're in a full-on masjid. You understand? So sometimes we take things out of context. So you find some of those people go to those countries and so you find some of those people now will go to other countries or even in their locality, they don't pray Jummah, they don't pray the Masjid because all the masjids around us are from Ahlul Bidah. So they don't pray no masjid. They don't pray the composed salawat, nor even Jummah. Because everyone around us, unless we go from all the way from around town, from one end of town to the next end.
We witness out here, man,
Yes,
driving past Masjid to
Yes,
go
so, hey, so that's sometimes people, yes, you disagree, you understand, how to deal with things in a balanced way. Now, so I said that sometimes I find certain things that are there, now, but it's still known how to put things in their proper order, where so it doesn't justify for you to leave away, you understand, certain things completely, even though there's a bid'ah attached to that act in some way or another. So say, for example, praying in the masjid. If you're in your locality and there's no masjid of the sunnah, you don't pray no masjid for Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, you don't go to the masjid anymore. And the next masjid of the sunnah is the next town. You can go there for Jummah sometimes, but we do the normal compulsory salawat. So putting things in proper perspective. So you find people in Medina who don't pray in the haram. You find people in Medina who don't pray in the haram. You with me?
The reason?
Because all the people are bidah, from Ahlul Bidah. And even some say they are kuffar. You understand? So because of those things, it's blocked the person and cut him off from the Muslim. Because they have weird ideas. A shahid, so it's of those things regarding, back to what we were discussing regarding, certain bid'ah may be attached to certain act, but it doesn't want the person to leave away that thing totally. Of those concerning, even the masjid, the imam may be doing something of a bid'ah in his masjid regarding Salatul Fajr, it doesn't work that you do not pray. If you can find a masjid of the sunnah, you can pray with alhamdulillah. But if you cannot find, and it's difficult to find, pray in your local masjid still, Salatul Fajr. And as for the matter concerning, now if you're making the kunut, then don't raise your hands. Then just don't raise your hand. But still pray with him throughout the salat, as kunut, as ahkam. If the imam raises his hand, it's sunnah to raise, or he cannot raise it. You with me? So for example, so if he's raising and then you just keep your hand and just, you understand, and wait until he end his thing, and you continue with him. But the shahid, not to leave the salat completely in the masjid.
So what if they're upon like minor shirk or something? That's the only masjid.
Minor shirk, minor shirk doesn't take the person out of Islam.
So you still pray in that masjid?
Does it? The general ruling is that if you can find, if the person is not from Ahlul Bidah in a masjid or in charge and they do bid'ah, if you can find a masjid of sunnah that is closest to you, then you pray with them. But if you cannot, then you pray in that masjid for your normal compulsory salat. As Ahlul Sunnah encourage the Muslim to pray the Muslim for the compulsory salawat. The Prophet concerning, I think he encouraged concerning that, even the Imam is a zalim. And do you understand? Still pray with him, and in some case, repeat your salat if he gone overboard. You with me? So still an encouragement regarding the compulsory salawat. If you ask the people today who are all the so-called people Ahlul Sunnah or upon Salafiyah, is praying the compulsory salawat wajib or not? The rules of the masjid that we know, they all say it is compulsory. With me? To pray the compulsory salawat in the masjid is that if most of the ones that we know will say it is what? Wajib to pray the compulsory salat in the masjid. According to one's ability in our country. With me? So ask the followers of our mashaykh, of all our mashaykh, do we do that?
No.
You with me? Especially some. Because everybody
very
goes to-
selective.
Hey, so that's the thing. So some things are encouraged by all, but sometimes we become selective. And the qawaid are there. We become selective in what we apply and what we don't apply. So that's the general thing, that even if you pray behind a person, whatever the reason may be, the fact that he's a Muslim, your salat is sahih. Man saha salatu fi nafsihi, the person, the qaida mentioned, the person whose salat is valid, if he prays by himself, is valid for someone to pray behind him. With me? So the person you're praying behind is a Muslim. He's the Muslim. Then you praying behind him, your salat is still valid. If it's a kafir, then no. But he's still a Muslim, whatever bidah you may have, your salat, the fact that he's still a Muslim,
So the minor shirk.
so that he's still a Muslim, your salat, his salat is still valid, and your salat is still valid, regardless of what he may have. As long as he's still a Muslim.
Sheikh, I actually have this problem with kunuts. Where I come from in Kenya, they have this kunut.
And-
They pray. And they raise their hands in Fajr. There's also
Al-Malikiyya, umuman.
yeah.
Aye.
There's another problem, however, because what happened is where I live, there was the small masjid, and then someone donated a huge mosque, and he brought his imams and everyone there, and they do this thing of kunut. But there's one other thing which I wanted to ask you about. That the new imam, when I started going to his durus, he was trying to sell to us the idea of the permissibility of having a grave in the masjid.
Allah mustaan. If it's an idea, nasa, Allah mustaan.
He was just trying to sell it because he knew that most of us, alhamdulillah, were Somali. Most of us in that area, so we're strong upon this.
Anta Somali?
No, he's not Somali.
Anta?
La, I'm
Aye.
not Somali. Yani, I
Hey,
am.
Majmu, okay. No, sir, okay. That's not, if he transfers the idea, that's the evil idea that is being put upon the people. To put a grave in a masjid is an evil idea, an evil act to be done. So, no, so either people in a locality, you understand, can somewhat try to their best in not to have that idea to be carried through.
So no, the question is, the question I want to ask is, because and unfortunately, because our country is not 100% Muslim, we don't have, I would have to drive a distance to get to another masjid. So should I pray behind this?
Is it pray behind the imam, or
Yeah.
at the moment,
Yeah.
or the idea
when I
of
go back home, should I pray in that mosque or should I?
the masjid is the grave, the cover in
They
the.
don't have a grave, but he's trying to sell this idea to
He's
us.
got release about that.
After that, I might say to you, when you go back, speak to some people of knowledge who understand in that area, know the level of that imam, to see what ideas really have. You understand? To see to what extent his ideas are regarding kubur. You understand? So it could be, we go, oh yeah, it could, yeah, it needs to be looked into more specifically, in more detail, that we'll have a different discussion. You understand? It's a different discussion regarding his condition, would require a more detailed discussion type of thing, to see whether, you understand? So as concerns Salatul Fajr, that is being discussed here, regardless of Salatul Fajr, one of the more longer of the recital regarding Salatul Fajr. I will mention before concerning that if in case it was the recital more shorter, then still accept. I will mention that the Prophet did so from what we had mentioned before, that the recital in Salatul Fajr expected to be longer, but he did it shorter. And so that you put that if it is done, there is no harm in this, and there is no blame upon the imam if this is done. And also the Prophet so said, general Prophet Islam, he reads Salatul Fajr about 60 verses. So read about from 60 ayat of the Quran for Salatul Fajr. But so in case he read low, and that also kind of somewhat in the Muslim order. Some people, because they know, for example, some people will calculate things. Calculate that expect Imam to read long in Fajr. So we are slow in getting to Fajr. We're getting slow. So wait until we reach the last two verses and then we're there. You understand? So sometimes the Imam change it. You understand? So the people be on guard. You understand? So the Imam, you understand, to keep always on guard. You You understand? So, you always, you calculate, yes, Imam, I'm going to read things, read long. So I'm going to take my little time to get to the masjid. You with me? So sometimes the Imam can somewhat switch it around. So if you come in, you finish. Already? Yeah, because, you understand? So sometimes people get used to one system, we become complacent. So the Prophet ﷺ complete hikmah behind the Prophet ﷺ changed. So the people always can somewhat put effort from the start. Put effort from the start. So that's concerning As-Salat al-Fajr. He mentions second concern that At-Tabarani. So Imam Tabarani rahimahullah, of those of the ulama who have many books in hadith. At-Tabarani rahimahullah, so mentioned that is another of those ulama who is a collector of hadith. So our hadith collection not just restricted to 6 books. We have much more. Now, and amongst those addition is Imam At-Tabarani rahimahullah that have many books in hadith. So At-Tabarani he has what they call ma'ajim. His books are called ma'ajim. Mu'jam At-Tabarani. Now, so ma'ajim from the plural of mu'jam. So he has Mu'jam Al-Kabir, Wal-Awsat, Wal-Sagir. 3 books. But out there, the order of those books sometimes can be a bit more, is more for a person that talibul ilm. Especially for the Al-Wusta Wal-Sagir. It's based upon shuyukhs. So some books sometimes the ulama, like they put it in an order, or the books is somewhat put in a certain type of sequence. It's not for anyone. It's difficult for anyone to use it, but they did it because they want to make things difficult. In a sense of to show those people who put more in, to show those ones who will go to those who are more, put more effort amongst the talib. You with me? So something I want to see who are the ones who's going to put more effort. That talib is the one that this book is for you. As for the normal person, this is for you. The normal person, the one who go to a next level, this is for you. Now, so sometimes the book can be somewhat difficult and requires to be the book of Ibn Hibban.
Ibn Hibban.
As a book As-Sahih, Taqsim al-Qawasim. The book name is also difficult. And now the book is structured even more difficult. Taqsim al-Qawasim. As he put in a certain type of order that ulama have to come and reorder the book to make it more easier for people to be able to benefit from the book. Because the book is an important book. But the order that author rahimahullah left the book is difficult. So it'll be restructured, reorganized, so as to really get the real benefit from the book. But they wanted to push people to a next level. So Ibn Rajab also said regarding this matter, that is regarding those salawat, and this hadith of Tabarani is that I mentioned, yudim dhalik, that the Prophet used to constantly do that. That part of the hadith is da'if, or this hadith is da'if. So regarding the hadith, which by Tabarani, which is in his book Al-Sahir, regarding the Prophet would do it constantly, then that part of the hadith is da'if. Now, the narration of Tabarani, it is weak. So that's concerning what is to be read in the various and we stop there and then we'll continue it. What is that clock still not right, huh?
No, it's right.
It's right now.
We've got about 10 minutes to move. Is it 10
We have 10 minutes?
9.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Well, okay, we'll read next hadith then. Aywa.
Narrated Hudayfa radiallahu anh, I prayed with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I noticed that whenever he came to a verse which spoke of mercy, he stopped and made supplication. And whenever he came to a verse which spoke of punishment, he stopped and sought refuge in Allah against it. Reported by Al-Khamsa and Al-Tirmidhi graded it Hasan.
So who's Al-Khamsa? Eat first.
Khamsa.
Who's Khamsa?
The five.
Hey, the five. What a five? What a five? Hands up.
I'll tell you one maybe.
Hey, who's the five? I mean, that you have to list the five. What are five? Mention Rawahu Al-Khamsa. What are five? Don't back in the back. What are five? So it said Khamsa, man Khamsa. Who's the five?
The five most authentic collectors.
Five most. So you explain what is five. The five most authentic collectors. Who are they?
Other than Bukhari and Muslim.
The five most authentic collectors. Okay. Five. What is five?
This is other than Bukhari.
Yeah, I think so.
So five.
Ahmed, Nasa'i, Tirmidhi.
That's only three. Ahmed, Nasa'i, Tirmidhi. That's
Ibn Majah.
Ibn Majah,
Abu Dawood.
Abu Dawood.
That's fine.
That's right.
That's five. Is that the five that you're thinking?
Inshallah.
So repeat again.
Oh man, I can't remember.
Ibn Majah,
Ibn Majah,
Nasai,
Nasa'i.
Abu Dawud,
Tirmidhi.
What is it mentioned? Abu Dawood.
Abu Dawud, Nasai,
Okay, start again.
Abu Dawud,
Abu Dawood,
Nasai,
Nasa'i,
Tirmidhi,
Tirmidhi,
Abu Dawud, Ahmad,
Ibn Majah.
Ahmed.
Ahmed.
Ibn Majah and Ahmad, Imam, Sunnah, what's it called? Sunnah Imam,
Hey, and Musnad.
Musnad,
Hey, Ahmed. Hey, okay, so you mentioned Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Ahmed.
Is that four?
Hey, that's four.
The last one.
So did you say Ibn Majah?
Hey, Ibn Majah. Aywa.
You said it? You said it?
No, we said it the first time, but everything was somewhat
Hey,
jumbled up.
those are the five. So those are the five that is intended here now. So being concerned, it says, with the exception of Bukhari and Muslim, they're outside. So we have Kutub Sitta. Nam. We said, so we have Bukhari and Muslim. Then we have Sunan and Arba. Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Ibn Majah. So all those make Kutub Sitta. When in this particular case, Ibn Ajr Rahimah, when he says Khamsa, it means drop Bukhari and Muslim and add to it Ahmed. To the four, As-Sunan, add to this Ahmed in his Musnad. And they become Kutub, the five that are intended in this particular here by Ibn Ajr Rahimahullah. So I mentioned that it's important in reading the books of the ulama, understand the language of the ulama. Sometimes this will take to read the introduction of the book that you're going to read. This requires you to know to read the introduction to see what is said by the author regarding the book that he's writing. As sometimes he outlines the reason behind why he wrote this book, and any particular type of vocabulary terminology that you're going to use that is specific. He will make this be known to you. Now, so it's good to read. We said the intro, especially the books of the ulama of old. Now, it's important to read their introduction.
So if it's in Al-Khamsa, then it's not narrated by Bukhari and Muslim.
Bukhari Muslim. Excluding Bukhari and Muslim. And because and then add Ahmed to Kutub As-Sunan. So as for this particular hadith that is mentioned by the author Rahimahullah, is to show concern of mashru'iyat, su'al in the ayat al-rahmah. It shows concern of permissibility that one can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mercy when one hears the verses of goodness, and also for a person to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protection when he hears the ayats of adhab, of punishment. So seek Allah to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon hearing ayat of mercy and of goodness, and also the verses that mention regarding al-adhab, punishment. Seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protection from this. Now, so this and this is while in the salat.
And this is restricted to the imam.
To be discussed. So that's a general discussion. So this general hadith is to prove that this is something that can be done. Not a discussion regarding this matter. So you have one concern that Imam Shafi Rahimah Ashab, it is mentioned, it is permissible for the Qari, for the person who's reciting in the salat and outside the salat, that if he reads verses that mention about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also, if he reads verses without the salat or inside the salat, if he reads as a reader, then for a verse that mentions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishment, to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's protection. That's for the person, the reader, not the listener yet, just the reader. In the salat and outside the salat. Now, so read the Quran and read the verse concerning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rahmah, we supplicate for this. Now, and things of punishment, we seek protection. That's for the person, the reader, whether in the salat or outside the salat in general. Then the matter now discussed concerns now, is this applicable to the nafila salat and compulsory salawat? Now that's the discussion between ulama. Which of salawat you're allowed to do this? Which of salawat you're allowed to do this? They mentioned regarding this particular matter, that regarding this matter that some of the ulama, that this is permissible for a qari for it to be done in the compulsory and the nafila salat. It is something mustahab to be done, to seek refuge from punishment and to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy from good things. And this is something that can be done in the compulsory and the nafila salat. Whether it is the imam, the follower behind, and the person praying by himself. So there's three different levels of people that they are allowed to do this according to this view. There's something which is mustahab. Clear? So the imam can do it, the person behind, and also the person praying by himself, according to this view. And they take that view based upon this hadith. This first view, they take this position based upon this particular hadith. Then and now rahimahullah, he mentioned and states or of the ulama that mentioned the Hanabila, or some of the ulama, so you find that Jumhur of the ulama, all that they can be done in those ways. The Hanabila, they are of the view that this is applicable only to the nafila salawat, not to the compulsory. So most hold that these things can be said in all the salawat for everyone. The Hanabila hold no, this is only applicable only in the which salat? The nafila, not the compulsory, is only to be done or permissible only in the nafila, non-compulsory voluntary salat, not the compulsory salawat. And that's the reason why we come to the conclusion, we look to the Prophet Islam, or you function, and you never did this in a compulsory salawat. And this hadith is relating to a nafila salat. Clear? So the hadith is relating to a nafila salat, as it's a night prayer, and it is not, he never did this, there is no account of him doing so in the compulsory salawat. So they make that distinction between compulsory and non-compulsory. And that's the view taken by San'ani, that's the more preferred approach, that it is not to be done in the compulsory, but it's allowable in the nafila salawat, and most of the night prayer and the likes. And Allahu Alam, that seems to be the more correct view. So in the compulsory salawat, the person in the nafila at night prayer, you have more time by yourself or with a few people, you can do those things. But in the compulsory salat, the general Prophet Islam, he would just read from start to end without pausing and doing of these things. There's no account that he would do these things in the compulsory salawat. So it shows that he's not done in those salawat, but more so it is to be done in the nafila, not the non-compulsory salawat. And that view, Allahu Alam, seems to be more correct.
Sorry, Ustad. So what exactly is the wording that should be said, and how are you just saying it in your mind, or how?
Now I can say that
And what's an example?
Hudayfa, when he mentioned, Sallaytu ma Nabi al-Islam, falamma marat bihi ayat rahma illa waqafta indaha yas'al. So he showed that Hudayfa, he heard this. Now that the person that he hears says something that can be said, that it will be said by the person, it is somewhat can be said, heard by others. But it's still in a low tone of voice, but still can be overheard by others. But I said that's in the non-composed salawat. Nam, and the person say, whichever way you want to say it. Hey, this is from Adab al-Nar, you understand? Allahumma ajurni min al-nar and the likes, you understand? But trying to make it short, not a long, lengthy thing.
And again, if the people that are behind the imam, is this audible from the people that are behind the imam?
That's in a non-composed, they can also do it somewhat in an audible way, but without per se, too loud. When they start tuning, they have some disturbing for others. Disturbing for others. That's in a non-composed, the voluntary salat can be done, but not the compulsory. What's it? Majority may, if you see, that's the view of the Hanabila, and some of the San'an and the likes, but you mind the majority of all that, it can be done across the board in any salawat. But that view is somewhat not that strong, based upon the case that it was done is only in the voluntary salat, not in the compulsory cases.
I don't think I've ever witnessed that being done.
And it's done.
I've seen it in the
Tell them where this is what I was thinking, I don't remember ever seeing that.
Allahumma ajurni min al-nar.
Hey. Hey, so with that,
Pizza man is here.
MashaAllah.
Instead it's Salah.
Ustad, before you close,
hey, what?
sometimes you see, as you mentioned earlier on, the people being selected or making excuses not to pray at certain masajid, stroke, marakas. This stuff where they're making imtihan, questioning the people. For example, the brother mentioned in his country about the grave being in the masjid. It might get a bit political, but see, with the imam of that masjid, that's quite clear. But sometimes there's imams amongst his people that don't believe in this stuff.
That don't believe in this stuff?
Yeah, the grave in the masjid. There's some of those people, maybe they're playing games, but they say, look, we don't believe in that type of stuff.
Okay.
So, is it permitted now? For example, where I'm working now, I have to pray Jummah with this ilk of people. But I'm not going to go and ask the imam, where's Allah?
Okay.
When you make a sujood, where is your dhikr going? Is it going to the dead man? Is it permitted to ask these questions of the person that's leading you in prayer, or should you just pray and go?
Then regarding what I mentioned by the ulama regarding praying behind a person is the imam. So either you have the case of the imam that you're praying behind, either one, you know his hal, you know his case, you know what he's upon. Or you find a case with a person, he says, mastur hal, you do not know what he's upon. You don't know him that well, you understand? Then in case that the person is not for a person to go and to test the imam, and if you see something which is obvious that requires further explanation, that is away from the sunnah. You understand? That requires maybe clarity, but generally concerned the person mastur hal, his case is somewhat unknown is the imam. There's no need for you to go and argue this, ask him, the 10 questions. You understand? You just pray with him, ala husnul dhann, without per se posing, trying to find out his condition and his state and how close and how not closely from the sunnah. You understand? But if you see something which is evident from him, obvious, then those things then can be investigated. But I was saying, no, so that's concerning what the way of the Salaf. Clear? Aywa. And imtihan